Welcome to this video. I was the commentator for the OCSI Chess Club YouTube channel when it went live back during December 10th. I'm still not used to the mic, so please forgive me if I stutter a lot. So, with that aside, let's get to the matches. So, the camera started picking up in round one in this position. Now, the first move I saw that was caught on camera was knight a3. Knight a3, putting the knight at the corner, not even moving it to its most active c3 square, and it could potentially even be exploited with pawn pushes on the queen side or other stuff in the future. Like the queen's already targeted here, so if you accidentally move your bishop away and your pawn away, and then that knight straight up just hanging. So then we have long castles. Long castles in most positions would not be such a dubious move like this. However, because development is the most important thing in the opening, this bishop is just straight up blocked. This is why they needed to play something like e6, which is what Stockfish recommends. Or alternatively, you could have also played something like uh, queen d7. You could have also played like maybe queen d8, although that would restrict your right for castling, so probably not. You could have played something like a6. This limits this knight even more. Now the knight can't even go here to attack the queen. So this knight is just completely hopeless. Now the knight actually has to go back sometime at some point in the future and develop to a better square. So that's that. Anyways, the game continued with after castling. It went b3. Why am I even? You know what? Never mind. We had the game went b3, which does absolutely nothing. The white's goal, I think, was to develop their bishop this way, which in most situations wouldn't be that bad. However, the issue there was with this position is that this bishop is straight up defending here. So instead of this, they should have probably went like c4, develop their bishop to like d2, make sure this pawn's protected, and so on. However, the game went b3. Of course, the best sequence was b takes c4, b takes c4, and now you can activate your knight, attacking your queen with tempo, and that is nice. Now your knight is no longer. Now there's the point putting. Now the knight's in a nice and active square. Although, and then you could probably play like a4, start attacking queen side by going like a4 to prevent something like pawn b5, and this position is pretty good. I'd say both sides are still pretty equal. And then there's the move g6, which instead of going this way, the black apparently wants to go this way to challenge, I guess, this bishop. That's the only explanation I can think of. But it's not a bad move in general. You could support it with like h. You can go h5, going after the king in the future. That pawn supports the h5 movement. So, and then you have a bishop b2, which again, as I've said, it was defending this pawn. Why was defending this pawn important? Well, here's the answer. There is knight takes e3, wins a free pawn, and has a fork. This tactic had been blundered for the next 1, 2, and finally, like up to here. So Queen c4 also blunders this because now the knight can also target here and here. So same thing. And then we have e6. Rook, rook fe1 is an inaccuracy. At first, I myself was confused why this was an inaccuracy. It protects this pawn. It prevents some weird fork here. But then I realized what Black's idea was, and this is what, and they played it in the game. G takes f4. I should probably give this a good move. G takes f4. E takes f4. And then takes f4. Now it's lined up with this pawn. Then we have the move h3. The point of this is to prevent Black from taking that pawn. But what what White should have done instead was they should have developed the rook to either stack it this way, completely ignoring that threat, because it's not really a threat considering you just have like king h1, king f1 if they actually take, and the bishop's kind of not exactly in the most ideal spot. And then there's also moves like you could have also have activated your knight, attacking your queen this way. I mean, there a couple of other good moves. So, I mean, Stockfish recommends rook e2 with bishop e3 check, or even if you take, you could probably have something like king h king h1, or I mean, bishop takes h1 is pretty bad because now you just have takes. I mean, the bishop could have never taken this in the first place because there's this knight here on f3. They do it anyways. Instead of developing a piece, they just think the pawn is hanging, which it is not. Rook dg8, not a bad move. The idea behind rook dg8 is eventually to sack this rook to pin the queen. You might ask how, but I'll explain that later. However, Stockfish also recommends the move bishop e3 check, which forces the rook to take. With rook takes e3, knight takes e3, attacking the queen with tempo. Plus, you're up in exchange. If you don't take the bishop after bishop e3 e check, there's a couple of other moves. There's just king 1, which immediately loses knight g3 checkmate. You have queen f2, but who does that since that just gives up a free queen for a bishop? Or you have king h1, which this one is harder to spot. There's knight g3 check, king h2, knight f1, discovered check. So the king has discovered check plus double check here. King h1. Then I don't think they would have ever calculated this one, but just for the video, Black can sacrifice the queen with queen h6 check. The idea is that White is now forced to take it with the knight, and then there's knight g3 mate because the king can't go here because of the bishop. It's in check, and it can't even move forward because its own pieces are blocking it. But that's not. Instead, they go queen f2. Now, in this position, uh, Black plays queen f8, which is good. I mean, this pawn is definitely hanging. Whoops, sorry. Accidentally turned Stockfish on. This pawn is definitely hanging, but it's not really a big deal. What White played was an inaccuracy, which was c4. What Since White is in a losing position, they should have gone defensive with something like knight h6, and then like something like bishop g, something like bishop g3, and then move the queen, and then like, of course, this rook is lost, but it would have been lost either way with something like here, or if it, or like a pin here. I mean, if it was a pin here, then you would have gone rook takes, knight takes, queen takes, which is better for white, because a bishop and a knight is 6 points, a rook's 5 points. Uh, so they went rook g6. Actually, in this position, there was a really cool tactic here with rook takes g2, sacrificing the rook. Or the rook, or I don't know even how you pronounce the rook anymore. So, and then you just, because if now white captures with the queen, now you have this pin. You have this pin, and you got nothing to do with that. You can't do anything about it. Like, after takes. Now you have like queen g6 check, completely exposing the king, and like something like here, and then like here. Now like black is like completely winning because something like here, and then now here, and then you get the knight, and then the king's just slaughtered. Instead, we have instead we had rook g6, trade pawns, and then we have knight b5. Finally, oh, why did my phone just ring? Whatever. Let's ignore that phone ring. If you heard that, oh well. Anyways, we have queen b4, which is a mistake because they should have gone continued with the tactic of takes, push, and something like yeah. This tactic is pretty hard spot. Rook e2, and then knight here, bishop a3, queen queen h4, attacking this rook, trying to deflect it off. However, there's still queen f7 protecting the rook, and then something like knight h4, knight takes g6, rook takes, queen develops. Eventually, would trade here, and now the queen would just straight up infiltrate. I mean, the bishop can infiltrate as well. Rook takes g8, takes knight g2, and then the bishop could probably have. I feel like the bishop could have moved somewhere, trade bishops, and now black's completely winning because queen's better than a rook, and this rook is just stuck in the corner. Well, it can move, but like it's not technically stuck, but like it's stuck at the moment, if you know what I mean. Instead, we have a rook f1, which completely blunders which basically just takes the knight, shovels the rook back for I don't know what reason. Then there's knight b4. Now there's the threat of here as well as here. I mean, here you can't immediately put your knight on c2 because queen here. But if they notice that there's this fork, then they might actually just move their queen. And like you can't move it here because of the bishop. You can't move the queen there because of the bishop, and they might accidentally stumble into like something like here and then here. So that was the other threat. Of course, that would have probably not happened in the game, but that that's why these are important threats to watch out for. Um, then instead we have a3, kicking the knight out. Okay, which is okay. Black immediately proceeds to try to trade the rooks. which was not really ideal because it just hangs a knight. It just straight up hangs a knight after like after the intermezzo move, check takes, and now we have here. Now all of a sudden, white actually has some counterplay with something like this. So that is pretty unfortunate. The best move would have just straight up proceed with like knight d3, which forks here and here. I mean, technically the queen can move like here or something, but then probably like, but then there was like rook takes, rook takes. I mean, that just had a rook, so. And then there's like, but instead we have bishop c3. Knight here, here, and unfortunately, white has lost a rook. We have rook e1, knight takes one, rook tries to pin the knight. Then we have the bishop pinning the queen, rook f1. I mean, checkmate is non-avoidable, and then something like we just shuffle, repeat. We just like black at this point can literally just do anything to win, as long as we don't blunder every single piece, and that's exactly what happens with a nice checkmate here. Okay, now let's proceed to the next round. We start off with a king's pawn game. 5. Knight f3, d6. We have this sort of Fildor's defense. We immediately white strikes with d4, good move. Knight c6 and d5, knight c7. This is where the camera picked up. In my opinion, black should have probably have done something like knight e5 instead. I mean, you can't really protect this pawn other than like knight d7, which all blocks the bishop either way. So like, or like just straight up just trade here and then here, going for something like c4, c5 would have also been fine. Kicking the knight out to like b3, and then just proceeding with your own attack with attacking ideas. I mean, you now have like, you have like, you have quite a lot of moves you probably can do. Like, probably have like, at this point, like knight here, and then like bishop here. Probably this sometime in the future once this pawn's gone. And then like castle kingside. But instead we have d5, knight ce7, knight c3, and knight f6. Both sides are aiming for this, and these pawns are the targets for black, and white's simply trying to develop. Now, bishop f4. Usually in these types of positions, bishop c4 is an inaccuracy. Whoop. I think Stockfish recommends something better. Yeah, if you're gonna develop this bishop, I feel like the dark square bishop. Yeah. So in this position, developing the dark square bishop was better because it can create threats like bishop e3 can go like here. It seizes this diagonal. Bishop g5 threatens to immediately go here. Bishop c4 is a developing move. It doesn't really do too much. So, I mean, Stockfish apparently recommends a4, which is hilarious. I don't think this would have been natural for most players at the tournament. Now we have bishop g4. Yeah, ace a6 b6 should have been what black should have done to punish bishop c4, since this bishop literally does nothing. bishop c4, and then like fianchetto this way, castle. Now we have bishop g4, bishop g5, h6, bishop takes f6, g takes f6, h3, bishop takes h3, queen takes f3, queen c6, d takes c6, b takes c6, long castles, bishop g7, rook g2. So looking back at all this, we have bishop takes f3. This is already an inaccuracy, because not an inaccuracy, but like a mistake, because generally speaking, white really, it just activates white's queen for free. Then we have c6. I mean, it has just like d takes c6, and there's just this open hole. This pawn is like literally, could be literally like white's target on the next move. So long castles, bishop g7, rook d2, short castles. Rook d2, I think the point was to stack rooks this way, which in my opinion makes sense. Stockfish recommends rook d3, which would have definitely been a better move since it sees this. Like, there's a sideways rook and queen battery along the third rank. But then we have, and then like castles and keeps going. And then instead we have castles. Instead, we should have, I think, castlings was kind of meaningless because this bishop's already kind of dead, and it's a literal target considering you can just eventually like bulldoze towards that way. Stockfish recommends queen c7, which I agree. King b1 and rook d8, and something like this position consolidating e4 and then castles. And now black definitely has a dominant center compared to white. White's pieces are literally targeted at nothing, maybe except this bishop pinning this king, and maybe this g4 pawn trying to get here. But other than that, his knight, his rook, his queen, and his king would just be stuck in this. Like, they're literally like not pointing at anything. Whereas black's is like ready to bulldoze this way. I mean, after like probably like rook here or something. Probably, maybe. Yeah. Or, yeah, Stockfish recommends attacking on the queen side. Instead, we have a rook hd1, knight, knight c8 is forced, bishop a6, and then we have h5, king b1. I give this a good move, considering how the players have been playing at this level. If I were looking at maybe a 16, 17, 1800 playing king b1, I would have not been surprised. This is a pretty typical move I see in queenside castling. King b1 protecting their king. Then we have knight b6, but that just loses a pawn. I mean, queen e7, king e6. Both players play pretty well here. Kind of boring. And then we have a g4, which, I mean, we can literally counteract with like queen d7. Like, what you gonna do? Like if if he takes, I literally have mate. So you had to play queen d3, and then trade rooks, and then here. I mean, in this position, probably like white's definitely better since this bishop is immobile and can't move. Eventually, I think, yeah, king g7. Yep. And then, I mean, white's gonna dominate considering they have a passed pawn here. As long as they don't blunder that pawn and keep the tension on these two double pawns, then yeah, white should pretty much be fine. Instead, we have and then we have f5, which is a mistake because it just blunders a full bishop. F takes g4, h takes g4, and h takes g4 blunders. Instead, black should have played h4. This was a pretty hard move to spot. because yeah, the idea behind h4 is that white cannot take with the rook because there's the queen. There's also the idea that if you take, the idea is now you have a takes with check, which now forces a forced mate, and you really didn't want that. You just wanted like h4 and then like consolidate with like queen here before and give your time for your king to escape this way. Yeah, bishop c4, takes. Yeah. But instead we have queen g4, queen g5, queen takes g5, f8, and there's mate. Then now we have round 3. I mean, round 3 was a bit crazy. We started off with d4, d5. We started off with a queen's gambit decline. Already high level stuff. Knight c3, bishop b4, knight f3, knight e7, bishop g5, and f6. Oh yeah, bishop. This is a pretty common tactic to spot. It's queen a4, which threatens to take the bishop here with a fork. It seems that white did not realize that. Of course, black does have knight bc6, and then there's like e3, bishop takes g3, takes here. But then after this, white has a monstrous position, having multiple diagonals, concedes the b file, immediately castle, all that. Instead, we have bishop g5 and f6. I mean, the best move would have been just c takes d4 and sacrifice this, and then possibly something like takes here. But instead we have, I mean, instead we have like bishop h, attack here. Now this weakens this diagonal for this queen, and eventually this bishop could possibly join up in the game later. Instead, and then, although bishop h4 is an inaccuracy, they should play bishop g2. That way, after takes, they have takes. All that stuff. Or of course, best move would have not been to take, but if in case black takes, then you have your bishop to support it. That's the idea behind bishop d2. Now we have bishop takes g, b takes c3, knight b6, e3, b6, bishop e2, bishop a6, c takes d5, takes castle, and knight f5. And then we have rook fc1, which doesn't really do too much. C4 was definitely better, with the idea of taking this pawn, or at least give tension, because if black takes this pawn, now you activate your queen for free. Now black cannot even castle. Instead we have rook fc1 first, which kind of delays it, and then there's b5, which is basically a free pawn. White missed it. Yeah, this is also not only a free pawn, but there's this. Now black's kind of forced to play this. And then at some point, once this knight pawn's gone, you can probably even play like knight here and like pressure this knight. Instead, we have a4, a6. I mean, you might as well just, instead of a4, you might as well take this pawn, because this pawn was hanging in the first place. I mean, takes. You can just go like takes, and then like queen takes. Same pressure here. And so then we have knight h4, knight takes h4, knight takes h4, knight takes h4. And then we have d takes e4, which is not good because now you have check. Knight f5. This is a mistake because of the because of like things like because something like king f7 could have been played. And I mean, trading here would have not really been good because considering takes. Black's king is more in the center in this endgame. Or even if that didn't happen, like a takes d6, black would have instead recaptured takes. And after a sequence like this, I mean, you basically equalize the position. And now there's g6, which I mean, you should have played king f7. Rook e8 was best here because, and then, yeah, king f7, all that. g6, there's knight g7, and then there's knight g7 check. King f7, knight e6. I mean, in this position, white is straight up winning. Loses all that advantage in one move. What black should have done was immediately take. After this, immediately take. Take. If queen takes, you now have queen takes rook. Check. Here, queen takes rook. And that completely loses for black. So, black cannot take this knight. So that was just a free knight. They had to play like king f7. Then you have knight c6, it's gaining tempo. Queen d6, and then takes. Trying to attack the rook. Trying to attack the queen. And then a bunch of moves like this. Anyways, back to the game. We have knight g7 here. White has moved their knight 3 times. 3 times. Not really ideal. Black plays queen d6, which is an inaccuracy according to Stockfish, but who even cares at this point? Queen f. Then we have queen e3, rook hg1, queen g3. Both sides are shuffling their knight h3. Knight h3 is a blunder. Instead of knight h3, they should have taken. End of sequence. By playing knight h3, black can take, and have a winning endgame. Here's the reason: this knight is stuck here. After something like king here, like, come on, the knight is in the corner in an endgame, which is crucial to have your knight even in the center. But obviously, they didn't calculate that. They didn't calculate takes. Instead, we have queen e6 blunder. Of course, they should have done queen takes g3, but queen e6. I mean, there's this fork. Knight g5 check. Takes. And it's all over. And Black resigns in this position in a mate in 7 position. On to round 4. We start with e4, c5, Sicilian, bishop c4, e6, Taimanov, Sicilian, knight c6, which gives a more so of a closed position. Knight c6, knight f3, and bishop e7. The idea, this is the beginning of the Taimanov, considering with black wanting to do something like c5, e6, develop their bishop to that square. Pretty standard opening stuff. Castles. Knight f6 is an inaccuracy because this. I mean, of course, they can move their knight. Like if they move it here, you have here, here, here. Now white just grabbed a free pawn. If they go here, they go check. There goes here and here, and then now white can push this pawn, take this knight, cannot castle. Or they had to retreat their knight all the way over here, which would have absolutely sucked. Now black can't castle, they had to move their piece back. They lost the tempo. Obviously, there's of course the e5, and there's obviously this move as well. But then, I mean, what's this knight doing here? Sure, it's protecting this square, but like, what else is it doing? It's doing nothing. It's just stuck in the corner. Why am I even commentating this in the first place? You know what? Never mind. We have castles, h3, b6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, queen take, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, activating their queen, which is not bad. In this position, we just have e5 was delayed so many moves. They could have played it like 6 whole moves ago. They finally played it here. Knight e8. What they should have gone was bishop c4. Now the queen had to slide to f4, which is the best move. Then you had then finally this move actually makes sense since it's attacking this queen. You might be wondering, well, why can't I just slide my queen here or something? Well then, free pawn. And if they play like knight d4, you're just doing this. And then the brilliant bishop takes f2 check here. And then the brilliant f5. Another brilliant move. And then queen takes d6. Completely devastating this position. Like, straight up. I mean, black can basically attack all they want. Like, for real? Anyways, instead in the game we have knight, then we got white grab the free pawn, and queen takes queen, blunders the game because this bishop falls. Instead, what they should have done was rook d8. This forces the queen to take on c7, reactivating black's knight. Now the black knight is in a better position. They're also threatening something like here. Well, if this knight was gone, that would be a huge issue and all that. Now, instead we have rook takes d6. We just lose. There's just this is over. 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 At this level, this is over. Yeah, both sides are playing very well. Takes, takes, takes. Check. And king h4. Checkmate's now unavoidable. With the rook takes a3. g5. Black still fighting for the end. But unfortunately, they get mated. On to round 5. Now, round 5 was very interesting. I could not capture the very first moment, but this is the moment that the camera caught it. So, bishop takes b2. Rook takes b1. Bishop g7. Knight g5? Like, there's c4. c4 was the best move. Black should have gone e6 and knight e4. I mean, if they move this knight instead, I mean, they could have gone a tempo. Like, if this knight moves, then we have here. So they have to lose a knight either way, like this. Instead, we have knight c6. Neither side looks at tactics. No one looks at tactics in rapid games for some reason. I mean, I don't either, so. I mean, the only time I look for ridiculous tactics is for, like, classical games, which I'm very good at. But, anyways, back to the main point. Queen b3, bishop takes b1. I mean, yeah, c3 was definitely a blunder because of, that bishop was over. e6, queen b6, and black resigns. I mean, sorry, I meant white resigns. Why did I accidentally mistake that? I mean, they resigned during their opponent's move, which was very interesting. Yeah, white resign. My bad. I do not know my colors for some reason, which sucks. Anyways, let's ignore the fact that I don't know colors sometimes and let's just move on, please. Anyways, we go to round 6. We have e45, knight f3, knight f6. Camera picked up from around here. I mean, this is I would have probably not played this move, but Stockfish says it's completely fine for some reason. I mean, e takes f6, f takes e6. I mean, the reason I would have not played bishop, I know Stockfish doesn't say it's an inaccuracy. I probably have said it was an inaccuracy because here just activate. There's just this. Like, the queen can literally target the king if they don't do anything ASAP. Oh yeah, d5, first mistake of the game. Because e takes d5, f takes d5, and yeah, d3 is a blunder. The idea is you should have just taken this. Knight takes e5, rook e1. What can black do? Like, bishop e1? Then you have like d3, and you regain your knight. Plus, now you have an active file for your rook that can't really be challenged in the near future. So, I mean, I don't know what Stockfish likes at this point. So, this is apparently the line Stockfish wants, but I can't decipher that for you. So, anyways, h6. This is a mistake. Now we have the first. I believe this is the first mistake of the game. There's it's h6. Um, I mean the best move was bishop d6, developing a piece. H6. The issue with h6 is that it really does nothing. I mean, you can't really be worried about like this and all that. Like you just straight up can't be like. There's really nothing there is to be done. Like, I mean, this diagonal is cut off for like the queen would have to go like here, here, and somehow miraculously make this pawn disappear. I mean, and also unblock this pawn. Like, there's literally like h6 is like the most useless move I've ever seen. Well, not maybe not the most I've ever seen, but it's not good either. Rook e1, bishop d6. Then we have a knight c6. Yeah, no. You had to play a queen d6 in this position. It was like queen d1 and play some sort of this kind of position. Um, yeah. So yeah, if you're gonna attack the rook, maybe go this way. That might have been a little better. Um, yeah. The issue with this move is just it just straight up hangs a pawn, which is why you should have attacked this way because otherwise this pawn would straight up be hanging. And now we have rook d5, queen f6. Now the queen's just being attacked. The queen had no reason to go there. 95. Play solidly. And then there's like queen d4, takes, knight d4, c3, knight check, 1, knight f4, and queen, rook f5. Inaccuracy. The best move was rook c5, something like rook f7, and like both sides just shuffling the rooks like this. Um, and I mean, here in this position, you just straight up grab the knight. I mean, if they didn't do that, then like something like say, let's try the second best move, or like for example, like rookie 5 or something. There's just like here and then like here takes. I mean, if you like take like this, I mean, the center is really dominated by white, and it's bound to win at some point. Um, Instead of rook c5, they had rook f5. The inaccuracy here would be takes, and knight takes d3, and now you just basically have given up. By doing rook c3 instead, what you've done is essentially instead now if they think they can take you, you can take back, you can take, and then I mean this is a threat, and if they do that, now they can't really take this like f6, and then there's the f6 inaccuracy. There was no rush to play f6, and then g takes f6 is also an accuracy. Well, I could have just simply played this, and then like at some point put their king here, and like straight up defended that. Yeah, g5, rook d1. Yeah, like here, and then we have knight takes f. We have takes knight f6. Yeah, this is gonna be a stream of inaccuracies here. We have knight g4. The knight should always be at the center, so knight e4 was better. Rook e8. Yeah. Back to the game, we have rook h8. You should have played h5. Like, straight up. It's just h5. Attacking the knight. The knight has to move back or here with The knight actually has to move back here. They only have one square. Then you can move your rook out and aim towards like an open file, possibly, and then like in one of these open files. And so, but instead we have rook takes, rook d1, takes, check, takes, attacks knight here, and rook b. No, that was just a free pawn. Nothing more, nothing less. By doing rook c5, you just overcomplicated things. And king e4. The best move was king f6, and then knight f3. But instead we have king e4, which is really bad because of this. You have like pawns there. Yes, the king should ideally be in the center, but not when there's opponent's pieces in the center. King e3, knight check, knight takes, takes. And now black is aiming to go for here. This is a very drawish position. Very drawish. Okay. Rook e4. King d3. c4. Rook d4 inaccuracy. Now, just at this point, just white wins. White wins because they have more pawns. They have this pawn's just straight up promoting. I mean, that's just an isolated pawn. Like, black shouldn't have traded rooks here. If you're down by pawns, you should not trade your rooks like that. I mean, you're kind of losing anyway, but anyways, the best one should have been like rook c5, and then like you either play here or you play here. It doesn't really matter. Just shuffle your rooks around, and you should basically be fine. I mean, rook c, that's not really a problem because you can take something like. Yeah, you could probably like checked maybe, or you could. I would probably play this rook d5 check. I mean, it doesn't really matter at this point. Like, all you had to do was basically shuffle your rook and king around. Like, there's nothing too hard about this. Instead, we immediately have rook takes d4, rook takes d4, king takes d4. And now, it's winning. g4 blunders! And we have h4 blunders! Okay, so here, black should have literally just taken this. F takes g4, f takes g4. And now, king takes c4. It's still within this box. So the king has to support it. King e2, king d4, king f3, king e5, king e3. Then what? Black's king can go here. There's a 2-on-1 majority on this side. So this position would have been a draw. Like a straight up clean draw. Instead, we have h4. Which you should have not done because considering the black king can literally get there before you can. So you might as well trade you might as well like traded that off. So that was a blunder. King g2, king c. And then I mean, come on. There's a 2-on-1 here, and black loses. I'm just gonna fast forward because this is getting boring. Yeah, here, king f4, here, here. And with after a promotion, we have a 2 queens mate. Period. That concludes the chess tournament we had in 2023. We hope to see you next year at some tournament. See you then.